Okay, the tape recorder is now on. Shall we kick things off, people? They're still chatting, it's okay.
All right, children. Class is now in session.
Oh, okay.
Meeting to order.
Wow. Thanks everyone for coming out here. I'm Jennifer McCreath from Newfoundland, by way of Nova Scotia and Toronto. It's my second official visit to Moncton, if you want to call it that. I guess I'll talk a little. I'm used to people knowing who I am, because in Newfoundland there's not a lot of trans people that are kind of out. So I was born in Nova Scotia, moved to Toronto when I was 9 years old when my parents got divorced. At the age of 33, I realized I was trans, so I moved to Newfoundland, which is probably not protocol, but at the time I needed a better job. As we know, trans healthcare is not the greatest in most parts of this country. So back in 2007, in the dark ages, it's like, I need a better job. I don't care where it is. So I went to Newfoundland because it was a job. Never thought I'd stay there. Come back to Toronto and transition, and I got to Newfoundland. It's like, I got to transition now. I got to make this work somehow. So I took the bold step, came out publicly, told my employer, who was the provincial government, and the safe and secure job kind of disappeared shortly thereafter, sadly. Of course, it was just a coincidence. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to be stubborn here in Newfoundland. You're not getting rid of me that easy. I'm staying here. And I'm going to collect EI, and I'm going to look for work, and I'm not leaving. And eventually I did find another job with the provincial government at a lower level. But I've kind of stuck it out there and helped, I think, raise the profile of trans people and trans issues in the province. And we went from me attending St. John's Newfoundland Pride in 2008, where nobody knew what trans meant, to now we've got 20 to 30 trans people showing up at the events, the pride parades. It's just great to see that, because nobody should have to move. So if you live in Canada, Stephen Harper's Canada, you should be allowed to live your life wherever the heck you want to live. Nobody should have to go to Toronto to do anything. And that's kind of been my, I guess, goal. But it was lonely without other trans people, so I reached out to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, even PEI, and found at least one trans person. This was 2011. And I had this great idea in my head. How about the 4 eastern provinces kind of get together and put together a little trans working group, and we can kind of, I guess, build and grow as a community and have strength in numbers. So instead of just one crazy Jennifer bitching at the government all the time, there can be more strength and power in numbers. So I had this idea, let's create the East Coast Trans Alliance. We'll have someone from every province. We came into this very boardroom, and we couldn't quite get on the same page, so that idea kind of went on hold. But anyone here know Josie Harding? Well-known trans person who left New Brunswick a few years ago. She kind of coordinated a trans float in the Moncton Pride Parade, and I'm like, that's a good idea. I'm coming from Newfoundland. It's like, okay, well, let's come to the boardroom. We'll do a little talk and meet and greet, and it's kind of went from there. And people are like, wow, someone came from Newfoundland to be here. So it's like, it's kind of nice to be perceived as special and important sometimes. And so I guess here we are at another kick at the can to try to, I guess, just form alliances, get to know people and issues. I guess the good news in Newfoundland is we now have trans human rights proclaimed in our provincial legislation there. Amazingly enough, I'm probably a small part of that. But what's even more exciting, it was a conservative government that allowed and proclaimed, the first conservative provincial government to say, yes, we recognize that this is an issue. We're going to do this and give the trans rights. So hopefully we're not as much political pawns as we were even 5 years ago. All 3 parties are, okay, yep, trans rights, yeah, great. So now I'm like, okay, New Brunswick doesn't have it. And the next step, of course, is the healthcare systems and the ability to change ID documents. You need to have surgery, supposedly, to change your ID. And that was deemed discriminatory through a human rights complaint in Ontario. And since then, Alberta and Manitoba have proactively changed their rules for that. Where are we with healthcare? PEI and New Brunswick are the two provinces left that do not fund SRS under any circumstance. Newfoundland and Saskatchewan have some roadblocks. They want you to go to Toronto, to CAMH. Definitely an old, out-of-date concept there. The other 6 provinces are on board with that. So as I sit here today, 2014, it still looks like the 4 East Coast provinces are furthest behind in those kind of 3 major policy areas. So I'm thinking now's a good time to do whatever we can to raise awareness and issues. Pride Weeks have been going on the past couple months, and I hadn't been to Prince Edward Island for 26 years, so I decided to, almost as a joke, I'm going to create a brand called the Jennifer McCreath Foundation, and I'm going to send media releases out. Jennifer McCreath is doing this. Newfoundland, they're sick and tired of me. Oh yeah, Jennifer, we've already heard your story. Go away. Leave us alone. PEI's like, oh my goodness, there's a trans person in Newfoundland coming here for our Pride Week. And it was great because we had, all of a sudden, trans people in PEI were publicly coming out. Yeah, I've lived here 28 years, I'm trans, and I'm first time I've come to an event and told the world. And next thing you know, there's a local PEI trans person on the front page of the paper there talking about healthcare. Got a meeting with the Minister of Health there, and we had a demonstration in front of the provincial building there that attracted media, television, radio, newspapers, about 40 people. In actuality, I could say it was more like 100. I like to overestimate crowds. And so I'm like, okay, well, there's a Fredericton Pride Parade coming up tomorrow, so why don't we pack up the old suitcase and come on down for the weekend. Visited my dad, who still lives in Nova Scotia. We saw some really old sites, and it's like, let's make a weekend of this. We'll come into Moncton, we'll have an event, and we'll go to Fredericton, we'll do a protest there, and then we'll march in the parade and just see what happens. And I'm glad to see that we've got a room full of people to come to something like this. I do have props. I'm not much of an entertainer, but I am a famous cover girl. I was on the front page of this paper in Newfoundland. Back when I was a little more athletic looking. Believe it or not, I've run 30 marathons in my life, including the Boston Marathon twice. And I think my proudest accomplishment in sports, again, the sporting world is behind the times with LGBT issues. And how many people are familiar with the gay games? How many people have heard of the World Out Games? So the Gay Games was conceived about 25 years ago. Let's have an LGBT-style Olympics. They wanted to call it the Gay Olympics. The real Olympics said, no, you can't steal our name, so they called it the Gay Games. Then the board of directors had this spat over whether or not they should hold an event in Montreal, so they split into 2. So they created the World Out Games. Now every 3 years or 4 years we have Gay Games, which is actually going on right now this week in Cleveland, Ohio. And the World Out Games. So as I was early in my transition, as a male marathon runner now becoming female, I recognized, especially in a small running community in Newfoundland, if you win races, people are going to say, well, that's not fair. At the same time, it's like, I don't want to be indignified. I'm not a man anymore. I'm not a male. So I said, we need a transition category. And who better than the World Out Games, who preach openness and acceptance? So I went to their website and looked at the policy on sex and gender, and it was binary. So it's male or female. So I said, okay, that's not good enough. What if you're transitioning? And they said, well, we took our policy from the Olympics. I'm like, this is not the Olympics. And I said, I have an idea. And I said, let's create a third category. Call it whatever you want, other or trans. You don't have to declare trans. I don't even want to win. I just want to be there. I want to participate and be seen. He said, yeah, okay, good idea. I didn't think they would, but I'm like, okay. I guess we have to go to Denmark and run a marathon. So I did. And that was a lot of fun. And I got into a swimming pool and swam at the event. And there were apparently, out of 3,000 athletes, 13 people signed up for the trans category. Unfortunately, the other 12 wanted to be quiet and private about it, which is understandable. Still, I feel proud that I was able to do that and help raise the profile. And when word got out at home that I was going to do that. This newspaper, the cover was supposed to be a joke. There's actually an article in here about my running, and that's what I used to look like. Estrogen can ruin your athleticism sometimes. But, I'm comfortable being known as the trans person, but at the same time I want to be known for everything else I do. And I think running is, not everyone knows, I guess, the ins and outs of sports. But you say the word marathon, there's kind of an understanding of, wow, it takes effort to do that. And when I was able to work my way into the Boston Marathon, that's another story, because you have to qualify to run the Boston Marathon. And guess how you qualify? Based on age and sex. So we had those conversations as well, and I was very close to the male standard, even once I started the transition. And I said, look, here's the scoop. I'm not going to win the race. I just want to be there. They're like, yeah, come on in. And yeah, my health isn't what it used to be. I'm just going to take some coffee here. Can we talk about everything we wanted to? Did we talk about my job yet? Not formally. We were chatting about it, yeah. That's my other claim to fame. I go to Newfoundland, I take this great job, they roll out the red carpet, pay for my move, even though it's only a temp assignment, with the idea it's going to be permanentized. And shortly after I go public with the trans thing, the job disappeared on me. And that's sad, because it's a provincial government job. And 2 days after I got laid off, they were having hearings to review the Human Rights Code. So I showed up and talked about how I'd just been laid off, and this reporter comes right up to me with a microphone. Do you think you got laid off because you're a trans? I said, let's grab a coffee tomorrow. I got a great idea for a story. It's like, what's interesting, they'll blatantly discriminate against you in certain parts of the world. You're trans, cut you off. Oklahoma, Texas, we were talking earlier. Newfoundland, they don't want to come right out and say, we're discriminating against you because you're trans. I think we all know what's going on, but okay, I'll play the game. I'll say, so instead of saying I got laid off because I was trans, I said, shortly after I transitioned, I got laid off. Not pointing the finger, not blaming anyone, just stating the facts. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I'm an unemployed trans person living in Newfoundland. And that was the story. And all of a sudden, there was public sympathy and recognition. And it's kind of helped me gain notoriety, I guess. I still haven't found a good job. I've managed to find some work, and which is sadly in the trans world, you can take the average salary and cut it down by 3/4. And the fact that I can afford to pay rent and buy the occasional plane ticket makes me privileged. And I guess I have to remind myself of that. And even to be out, I hear a lot of people talking about violence against trans people, and I'm lucky to say Newfoundland, there's been no violence against any trans people that I'm aware of. There was a reported gay bashing there, one. But I guess it's a reminder that we still have a lot of work to do and a long way to go. And so yeah, I just thought it would be fun to organize an event like this and reach out to LGBTQA, anybody, community that wants to come out and just hang out and chat. Some people think I'm a superstar. I don't think so, but I can understand buying a plane ticket to come to New Brunswick to do a couple of little trans events. I'm like, okay, anything that works. You see, we have plungers here, and we have to deal with a lot of crap. So I like to, and that's why we have the trans colors. I like to throw humor into everything we do, and so I don't know. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. Part of my entourage, of course, is Asher McDonald, who came all the way from Nova Scotia.
The sticks, the place where nobody wants to stick around.
The suburbs of Pugwash.
Yes.
Is that what you referred to?
Also known as Port Howe.
Yes. So Asher has really put together a presentation.
I have. I thought you were going to have more than me.
After Asher speaks, we'll just, if anyone wants to talk or say something, we'll give you the microphone on the head of the table, and once everyone's had their chance to say, then we'll just turn it into a casual conversation. And if people are comfortable being in pictures, I'd love to get some group pictures at some point. If you don't want to be in pictures, that's fine too. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to Asher,
Okay.
and it's all yours.
All right. Well, first of all, I'll read my